Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday workshop with Thrive Chiropractic Coaching. And today we're going to talk about perspective. Perspective is very powerful. I have a story for you. A young lady was waiting in the airport departure area pending her flight home. And after realizing there was a delay, she bought a small bag of cookies. Some of you may have heard this story before. And she made her way to the VIP lounge and she sat down to relax. And she sat in a chair and an armchair and wanted to enjoy her cookies and read her book. So beside her sat a pleasant young man. And the bag of cookies were between them. Neither of them spoke. The young lady took her first cookie. Then, to much surprise, the young man also took a cookie. He said nothing. She said nothing, but was clearly bothered. For each cookie she took, he did the same. Again, no words or looks were exchanged, but her anger grew. This continued until there was only one cookie left. Then the man took the last cookie and divided it in half, leaving her half in the bag. Well, that was it. She was infuriated and bothered by his lack of consideration, so that she packed up all of her things and she moved. Soon she boarded her flight, took her seat, and began to settle in for her trip, still very upset by the young man's lack of manners. She went into her purse and as she felt around her purse, her heart began to sink. There, in her purse, was her bag of cookies, unopened and untouched. She was so ashamed of how she responded and was further upset by the realization that it is too late to make amends and apologize. This young man had shared his cookies without saying a word. He even gave her half of his last one. He wasn't upset or worried about her actions. He gave without condition or feelings of anger or bitterness. So, perspective, right? Perspective can be very powerful and it can also influence our emotions. I had a really great question come up in one of our coaching calls this week. And the scenario was that the client that I was coaching was taking care of a young woman, 17 years old. And when the young woman started in the office, her mom had come with her to review her condition and to make all of the financial decisions and the healthcare decisions for her. And now it was time for the young woman to come up on her renewal into her next phase of care. And instead of the mom coming for the renewal, the dad actually ended up coming for the renewal. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. So the first point that I'd like to make here, which has nothing really to do with perspective, is that when in our office, when we have people who are under the age of 18 or people who need a mom or a dad to make health or financial decisions with them or for them, we always require both parents to be at that initial report of findings. And this is the reason why that we do that. The reason why is that if one parent, and this is the same reason why we highly recommend spouses coming back to the report of findings, but if one parent is there and they have a shift in perception on the day 2 of the report of findings and the other parent does not, eventually we're going to run into a problem. And this was the problem. All right, so let's just take a step back. What is that shift of perspective that we're talking about on the day 1, day 2? And you guys probably already guessed it. It's the shift in mindset or the patient perspective that they're coming to you for some kind of back or neck or head pain relief. And then we're shifting their perspective that now that they're coming to you for wellness, right? Which is what chiropractors do. We check for subluxations, we detect subluxations, we remove subluxations, and we allow the body to heal itself. So those are two very different belief systems or very different perspectives on chiropractic, why the patient is coming, why are they committing to care, right? Does that make sense? Say yes in the comments if it does, so I know you guys are following along. Okay, so now this patient comes back with her dad, not her mom. And she actually ended up, she was only 17 years old. She actually ended up getting phenomenal correction in her first part of her corrective care plan. And my client went on to explain, to show the correction, and she went on to explain what the next steps in her care plan would be. And the patient was elated with her correction. The dad was elated with the correction. And when they got to the money, the dad right away just closed up and he rudely said, "We're not moving forward. We're going to a chiropractor where I have to pay nothing." Now, if you guys have been in chiropractic for more than, a second, you know that there's really no scenario where the patient pays nothing. Typically, and once again, there are exceptions to every rule. Like in our office, we do have we actually have one patient that she has a $0 copay and her insurance is unlimited. But as you guys already know, insurance is very limited across the nation, across the board for chiropractic care. So that's a very rare instance, right? So what is the perception from the dad's perspective? Well, the dad's perspective was still stuck over here, that his daughter was seeking care in a chiropractic office for the treatment of neck and back pain. And when somebody has that perception of what they're doing in a chiropractic office, the value of care comes down drastically. Okay, so how do you then change somebody's perception at that time, at that like when you're already in that second financial or that renewal, that second money, that renewal process? And so this is how I told her to handle it. So the first thing is I said, what I would say is, first of all, I always make sure that we are correct in our assumptions, right? So what does that mean? Well, maybe the guy truly does have like a $0 copay. So the first thing that I would do is I would ask the dad, I would say, I think his name was John. I would say, "John, just to, first of all, I validate him, shoot, man, if I could get care for free, I would want to get care for free too. But just so that I know that we didn't make a mistake, or just so that I know that, because we're in network with your insurance, aren't we? Right?" And so I would get that agreement. And then I would say, "Just so that I know that we didn't make a mistake, you do have a copay, correct?" Now, why am I asking this question? I'm asking this question to get leverage and for him to take responsibility. So he comes back, "Yeah, I have a copay. I have a $15 copay for 30 visits or something like that." And I said, "Oh, got it." And I said, "Well," I would say, "Well, I'm just curious. If you have a $15 copay, I'm just curious, how would you be able to get chiropractic care for $0? And the dad comes back and says, "Oh, I know somebody, and my friend goes to them, they don't charge them anything." And so I would come back and I would say, "So what you're saying is they waive or they drop the copay? Is that what they do?" "Yeah, I guess so. They just don't charge them anything. They go for free." And then this is where I would pattern interrupt him. And I would say, "Well, John, do you know that it's a crime for doctors to drop copays?" And once again, I'm making him take responsibility. And maybe he truly doesn't know that. So the question is, do you know that it's a crime for doctors to drop deductibles and copays? And it doesn't really matter what his answer is. He's probably going to come back and say, "No, I didn't know that," or "Yeah, I knew that, but it's free," and whatever he said, whatever he comes back in. And I would say, "Look, the first thing I would do is I would see the best in the dad." Now, if you're a parent, how many of you guys are parents out there? If you're a parent, then you know one thing is for sure. You know that as a parent, you would go to the ends of the earth for the health of your child, for the success of your child, right? And so what I would say is I would see the best in him as a parent. And I would say, you know what, John, I know that Ava's health, I know that Ava's health is your top concern. It is your top priority. And then I would ask him a question. And I would say, so are you really comfortable putting her health in the hands of a criminal? And that would be my question. Now, that's how I would take him through that. That's how I would take him through that perception, that change in perception, right? Because you're really not going to change him in perception at that point from pain to brain or pain to health or wellness, but you certainly can change his perception on how he feels about getting care for free, how he feels about going to a chiropractor that is willing to commit a crime, which is dropping a deductible or dropping a copay, right? And so I kind of thought of the analogy when my client was telling me the story. I was thinking of the analogy of like the woman who goes shopping and she has a bunch of um, items of clothing that she's getting checked out, and the cashier is like ringing her up and ringing her up and ringing her up, and the cashier misses an article of clothing, sticks it in the bag, and the person who's shopping, the shopper, doesn't say anything about the article of clothing and gets away with a free top or a t-shirt or something like that. So what is the perspective? Well, one perspective could be from the shopper, like, oh, well, she didn't catch it. I'm not saying anything. I didn't do it. I didn't steal. But the other perspective, of course, is that you did, like you did take the top, you took a top that you didn't pay for, right? And so it's really the same kind of thing. So that's a great analogy to look at there. So so now also like a lot of it when you go through this with people is your intention. And intention is absolutely the most important thing because your intention and your mindset is going to dictate your tone. And so if you kind of come out a person like this and super confrontational, then they're going to come right back at you and be confrontational and might even set you up for a bad review. And so the mindset when you go through this with somebody is just a genuine type of mindset of just being curious and just showing them a different perspective of what they're actually doing. The goal is not necessarily to have them say, okay, yeah, you're right, we're going to stay and start care with you, or okay, yeah, you're right, you know what, we're not going to go to that other chiropractor, we're going to keep her here and keep her under care with you. That's not necessarily the intention that you're going for. You're not there to convince or to sell or to force somebody to have care in your office. You're really just there to show them a different perspective. Like Tony Robbins does this all the time. He takes people all the time they've already made the decision. They're definite. They're committing suicide. They've made that decision before they even walked into the door with Tony Robbins. And all Tony Robbins does is exactly what I just showed you, and that is take them through a process of allowing the person to see a different perspective. So you take a person who has a perspective of their life being horrible and just terrible experiences and this and that, a bunch of negativity, and they make the decision to commit suicide. And he just takes their mind through a process to see a different perspective of their life, of something that's more positive, things that they can be grateful for, blessings that they have in their life, right? And so this is just the same way. And what will happen certainly on a subconscious level at first is now when you take them through that patient will associate a specific emotion or a specific feeling about that chiropractor being a criminal. So they'll take the feeling of a crime being committed and actually start associating it with that chiropractor. And one of two things will eventually happen is that person will either stop seeing that chiropractor and find a new one, or they will come back for your services, especially if you provided really good services. So perspective can be really, really powerful. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this. And it's Wednesday. I am going to sign off and sign out. If you guys have any questions about this, it's different. It can be difficult. So if you guys have any questions, you want to learn how to do this, connect with me. I'm more than happy to show you how we do this, to show you how we communicate on this kind of level, and reach out to me. Private message me through Facebook. You guys know where to find me. All right, listen, have a really blessed rest of your week. And it is hump day. So go out and get it.